Okay, so I think we are now live, I hope. So good afternoon, everyone. Great to be here today. Hope you've all had a great morning so far. So I'm going to start by introducing myself. I'm Karen Monroe. I'm the Early Talent Acquisition Advisor here at CMS. So I'm typically based in the Glasgow office, obviously not right now, and apologies, my lighting is a little bit dark. I'm responsible for recruiting talent into our Scottish and Northern offices. So I look after universities and other partnership relationships that involve tapping into talent in those locations. I've been with the firm about 18 months, and she's not here today, but I work very closely with my counterpart, Jen Silva, who looks after predominantly London and the South. I'm just going to quickly let Sam introduce himself as well.
Hi everyone, my name's Sam Porter. I'm a current trainee at CMS. I work in the London office. I'm a third seat trainee and I'm in the renewable power team, but we'll get a bit more about me later on.
Super, thanks Sam. Okay, so moving on to what I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to kick off with a very brief introduction to CMS. I'm then going to talk about the different opportunities that we have available, and I'll also provide some hints and tips about how you can improve or ace your application. So then we're also just going to hear a bit more from Sam, as he's promised, and then he can tell you a bit about life at CMS as a trainee, and then we're going to move into a Q&A session as well. So to begin with, like I said, I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview into life at CMS. So we are is referred to as a global full service law firm. So despite the tax part in our branding, we are not tax specialists. We're a full service law firm with a number of areas of sector expertise. So we have over 70 offices operating in over 40 countries, and we are a truly global law firm. In 2017, CMS, Nabarro and Allswang combined in what was the largest ever UK merger in legal history. The new combined firm CMS is the 6th largest in the UK by revenue and the 6th largest globally by headcount. So we're a new kind of law firm, and we're known in the market for our sector expertise. Apologies, I haven't moved my slide on. So we're known for our sector expertise, focus on technology and international scope. So why is all of this important to you? A lot of you are probably at that stage in your careers where you're thinking about what kind of firm you want to work at. It's really important to kind of see what aligns to you and what kind of role you might be interested in. So do you want to be an in-house lawyer? Do you want to work at a full service law firm? Do you already know what area you want to specialise in? Or maybe you want to go down the barrister route? There's no right or wrong path, to be honest, but it's good to do your research and narrow down what type of firm might be best for you. And particularly when you're navigating this virtual world as well, where you're getting to speak to a lot of graduate recruitment specialists or trainees. It's really good to have informed discussions. So it's good to know what you're actually interested in at this point. At CMS, we work across a range of sectors, so I won't go through them all, but we've got hotel and leisure, real estate, technology, financial services, consumer products, just to name a few. What also distinguishes apart, and perhaps more interestingly, is the work, is the culture. I always think culture of a firm is one of the things that really distinguishes one firm from the other. Again, we could probably talk about this far more at length, but in summary, some of the key things that make us stand out are focus on D&I. So our diversity and inclusion programme is driven by our senior partners, and it ensures we attract the very best talent from a wide variety of backgrounds. So this is embedded in our business, from recruitment to career progression to bringing our culture to life. We have 10 diversity networks, and that enables people to share common experiences and raise awareness of the challenges they face. Probably never been more prevalent or of note than they are at the moment. So to include, some of these are the BAME network, the Enable network, the Women's network, LGBT, just to name, again, just a few. And we are also a top 50 employer for women 2019, 2020, and a Stonewall top 100 employer. Corporate responsibility, that's also really core to our culture. So everyone at the firm is encouraged to work 50 hours per year on CR activities. These may include giving pro bono legal advice to a community group, providing career advice to aspiring law students, or teaching numeracy skills to local school children. And we also care about the world around us. So in 2018 and 2019, we gave 1.5 million worth of pro bono legal advice, and our people spent over 22,000 hours volunteering on CR projects. We also have a really strong track record for innovation. For example, the innovation team was set up to facilitate exciting and innovating. Oh, sorry, this is the joys of technology. Apologies. If I can get back. Sorry for this. To facilitate groundbreaking ideas, and we were also heavily involved in the development of Lupo, which is one of the world's first open industry platforms for legal matters. And I think it's just really important to note as well, being that we're in this really interesting time, culture has never been more important, as I kind of mentioned with this staff network groups. So how have we adapted to lockdown, and how have we been looked after? So in terms of adapting, we were very quick to be working from home. I think we were told on the Monday that we weren't able to come back into the office back in March now, which seems a very long time ago. And most of us were already set up and able to work from home the very next day. We all have Surface Pros. So being a technology-driven firm really came into it was really proved its worth in those instances. We didn't have any lag in our performance. We were able to just get going. But probably more importantly, in terms of the firm has actually looked after us during this time. We've had really strong, clear communication. So our senior partners have been giving us weekly updates, communicating with us, really making sure we're looking after our mental well-being, which is, of course, for many particularly challenging at this time. So I think being part of a global firm, but being made to feel important and looked after has been really, really, for me personally, a really significant benefit of working at the firm, and it's really enhanced our culture actually. I'm moving on. And just this is just a bit of a slide to just show how many awards that we win. So as you can probably see, we just continue to strive to improve year on year, and continue to win as many awards as we can. Okay, so now moving on to our opportunities at CMS. Firstly, I'll just mention that our applications are now open. They opened early September and they close on the 4th of January. In terms of opportunities, firstly, I'll just touch upon lightly the apprenticeship. So our solicitor apprenticeship is a 6-year programme, and it's a great way for individuals to earn while they learn. So it's a new way of qualifying as a solicitor. I think last year was our first intake. So this is open to school leavers, career changers and non-law graduates, and is available in London, Sheffield and Manchester. Our CMS First Steps programme, so that is aimed at first-year law students and second-year non-law students in England and Wales, or second-year law students or third-year non-law students studying in Scotland. And it's a great insight into life at CMS. So the programme runs for 1 week, and it's kind of a bit of a taster session, if you like, of what you might experience at the CMS Academy, which I'll go into in a minute. So you'll get an introduction to the firm, you'll get skills sessions, you'll get an opportunity to shadow fee earners, you'll get a supervisor and a buddy. And we recruit students from across our offices in Bristol, London, Sheffield, Aberdeen, Glasgow and Edinburgh. Like I mentioned, this is a great feeder into the CMS Academy. If you are successful at First Steps, you actually get fast-tracked onto a CMS Academy assessment day, therefore bypassing the Academy assessment process, which we do get more numbers for the CMS Academy typically, because that might be where people are thinking about their careers or vacation schemes a little bit more. So it's a really good incentive to applying for the scheme. The CMS Academy is our next generation vacation scheme, and it is the only route into securing a training contract at CMS. So in contrast to other firms, this is actually a 3-week scheme. And this is because we have 1 week dedicated to the Business of Law Week, where we see everyone come together for an innovative leadership development programme. So it's a really busy week. We did it virtually this year, which was really exciting. But we managed to incorporate a lot of the same events. So it was sort of client visits, work simulation exercises, panel discussions, loads of really interactive sessions. Following that, you've got 2 weeks doing your typical internship program. So that would be in the office that you applied for. And if you are successful in that, then you will be offered a training contract. So I think I did mention this before, but it is the only route to securing a training contract to CMS. So we don't do direct training contract applications. And just one thing to note as well, for both the CMS Academy and CMS First Steps, it is you get paid £400 per week for each program. So moving on to eligibility. So the diagram really says it all. I won't run through everything, but this tells you what you would be eligible to apply for depending on where you are in your studies. Our typical entry requirements are ABB or the equivalent, and you have to be on track to have achieved achieved a 2-1. Just one point to note is that as a firm, we do look beyond academics. So if you do have mitigating circumstances or you have a really, really strong application otherwise, we really do try to look beyond that. So don't be put off if you do have slightly below our minimum criteria. As I say, it is a benchmark, but we do really take a holistic approach to that. We also use RARE, which is a contextual recruitment system. So that puts all academic achievements in context. And yeah, we also, just one thing to note as well, we actively try to recruit 50% law and non-law students. So if you're ever unsure about what you're eligible for, once I take these slides away, you can I'll go on our CMS Early Talent website and you can see our program picker there, which will help advise you where you should, what you can apply for. And I'll just quickly touch on Scotland as well, which is slightly different. Again, you can see from the diagram yourself which ones you're eligible for, but effectively you're just 1 year behind in Scotland. So First Steps starts from second year, and similarly with the Academy. If you are a non-law student or planning to apply for any of our offices outside of Scotland, you would be obviously offered a training contract in England, but you would still need to complete your GDL or your LPC. But we would provide financial assistance during the study as well. So a bit of a whistle-stop tour there in terms of what our programs are, because I really did want to just touch upon, now that applications are open, touch upon some sort of hints and tips that might help you throughout the process. So these hints and tips I'm going to give you probably applicable to our process, or definitely applicable to us, but also to any other applications you submit. So hopefully it will be of some help to you. A quick overview of our actual process. So we have 4-stage process. Again, it's not a particularly unique assessment process. We start with the online application. If you are successful at that point, then you will be put through to the critical thinking test, which is the Watson-Glaser. Again, if you meet our benchmark there, we'll put you through to the video interview. And then if you are successful at that, you'll get through to the assessment centre. So I'm going to go through into more detail on all these in a moment, which is why I'm just rushing through them now. But one point to note is that we do recruit on a rolling basis. So if you are thinking about applying, it's really good to sort of start working on that online application as soon as possible and try and submit your application before the deadline, because we do start interviewing before our deadline closes. Not really mastered this moving the slides. So yeah, so starting with the online application. So as I mentioned, you would need to apply through our Early Talent website. So on the online application, it will ask for everything that you would typically expect. It will be asking for your personal details. It'll be asking for academic qualifications. As I mentioned before, always mention mitigating circumstances. And it will also be asking for work experience. So that will be anything legal or non-legal that you have that might be relevant. One really important thing to note about our application forms is that we have 3 qualitative questions, which are 200 words each. So do take some time into answering these questions. You shouldn't be able to answer them in 100 words, and they are a little bit more complex than that. But equally, you shouldn't be able to answer them one time and walk away from them. So do spend some time on those answers. They're more important than you might actually think. I'm going to actually try and speed up a little bit. I realise I'm running a bit behind. So in terms of what we're looking for, in this application form, attention to detail is vital. So please make sure that you do spelling and grammatical checks. I'd probably recommend putting it in words. It's really important because most of you are probably have those capabilities, but sometimes we just don't capitalize because we've all become used to WhatsApping and things like that. And the online application isn't the place to be doing that. So make sure it's as sleek as it possibly can be. And show some initiative and creativity. So kind of what makes you stand out, where have you been proactive in securing work experience, anything that makes your application a little bit different, get it on there. Even if you think it might not be relevant, it's definitely worth a try. Commercial awareness, we definitely expect to see that represented in those 3 questions that I mentioned. It's a bit of a dread word, I think, amongst potential candidates, but it really just means about keeping up to speed about what's going on in the world around you, and particularly in relation to, you know, CMS and how that fits. That would be really, really important. We expect to see that come out in your application. So do keep up to date with your knowledge and business news. So keep BBC, Times, and of course, if you're applying for our firm or whatever other firm, keep up to date on their actual specific the deals that they're doing, and anything that might be of note that you can use both in your application and further down the line. People skills, if you've got kind of customer service experience, things like that, get that down there. We'll assess that at an assessment day, but it would be great to see it on an online application as well. And, you know, if you can put in examples of drive and resilience where you've really gone above and beyond, you know, securing again work experience, coming to events that you wouldn't typically do, all that stuff shows a real commitment to your career. So get that in your form where you can. Moving on to the Watson Glaser, again, one that kind of it's a bit of a it's an objective part of the screening process, and again, it's sort of got a bit of a reputation, but actually, I'm sure as potential lawyers, it's a skill that a lot of you potentially have, but it takes a lot of practice. So the critical thinking test, it's basically a psychometric test, and it's used as from a lot of employers to assess potential employees as part of the recruitment process. So it can assess attributes such as intelligence, personality, and more specific skills. And in fact, over 70% of employers are now reported to be using psychometric testing as part of their recruitment process. So, like I said, it's used to measure your critical thinking skills. But the question I suppose you're all wondering is, how can you perform well in a critical thinking test? And as much as there isn't much you can do in terms of teaching yourself to think critically, you probably have those skills or you don't. And that's one reason why we use it. It's a really reliable way of filtering out candidates who are looking for a career in law. But what you can do is you can teach yourself to be in the right mindset to complete the test, and that's actually half the battle in this particular test. So the most important thing, to be honest, out of all these tips on the board is to practice. So this will allow you to get used to the format of the test, and it will give you an idea of how long you have to answer each question. That will also keep you calm when you're actually answering the test for real. We have a practice test on our website, so you can use that as many times as you like. So I strongly advise that you do that. Read the questions thoroughly. So don't just jump to a conclusion. Even we want you to answer them quickly, but not so quickly that you miss the point. Don't spend too long on one question, because it works out about 45 seconds per question. So if you don't know the answer, move on, and you know, you can come back to it later if you have the time, but it's not worth sort of what's the word, damaging your performance in other questions for one question. And also make sure you choose the right time to complete the test, so avoid distractions, and find some specific strategies that might work for you. So for example, in multiple choice, ruling out some obvious answers, reading the question. Next stage is the video interview. So the video interview is kind of what it sounds like. We will send you a link to a video interview. So it's not live, it replaces a telephone interview, but you won't have somebody reading the questions from you there and then. It will be pre-recorded. And I think these can sound a little daunting, although maybe not now so much, now that we're constantly on video and probably far more used to talking to people on screen now. So I think that's one, if we're looking for silver linings, maybe that's the one. But in terms of actually practicing the video interview, there's still a lot that you can do. So just to give you a bit of an overview of how it works, once you have the link sent out to you, you will have the questions will come up, and you have 1 minute to practice each question and 1 minute recording time. So you can't re-record your questions. So what I would strongly suggest you do, first of all, is prepare. By doing that, you can actually have a pen and paper to hand. So when you hear the first question, jot down some notes so you actually know what you're going to say when you're being recorded for real. Also prepare for distractions. If somebody throws you off in the middle of you recording your question, you don't get that option to re-record. So really make sure that you're in a quiet environment. No one's going to burst in and ask you if you want a cup of tea, or which is normally lovely, but maybe not the time. Maybe make sure you're in the house alone so it just doesn't distract you, distract you from what you're saying. Strong lighting is also really, really important. So we can actually I say that when I've got terrible lighting, so I wouldn't record it here. But strong lighting, so we can see you, we can get those visual indicators from you. And another thing in terms of preparing your answers is trying to be quite innovative and think about answers that we might not hear time and time again. Our recruiters are looking at thousands of videos. So if you can make your answers a little bit off the beaten track, that's going to be really beneficial and going to make your interview stand out. And finally, again, practice as much as possible with those. Practice with friends, practice recording yourself. That's going to be really beneficial. And in terms of visuals, so that's the kind of prep. In terms of visuals, just focus on the camera lens. So your eye line isn't going around too much. Consider the way you're positioned in front of the camera, so you should be sort of straight on. I've seen people holding them up, which looks incredibly uncomfortable, or from down below, which is not that flattering. So just try and be straight on where you can be. Consider who's viewing the video, so make sure you're dressed appropriately, which means you don't have to be dressed up to the nines, being that it's a video interview, but don't be sort of too casual either. And equally with that, you can be formal and natural and smile and all these things that are sort of make you engaging, but don't be too much that way. Equally, don't be too laid back. So watch where your hand positioning, for example, don't be leaning on your hands, things like that just could be give slightly the wrong impression. Effectively, the best thing with a video interview is to treat it as you would a real interview. And finally, I'm going to move on to the assessment day. So this is it's about a few hours long, our assessment day. I have had a lot of feedback that it's actually quite enjoyable, so hopefully it doesn't sound too daunting. So these take place across the country, and you would typically be doing it in the office that you have applied for. So our exercises, we've got a few of them. You'll all in the real world, so hopefully you'll get an office tour. Our assessment days will be taking place next year, so hopefully we'll be back in the office by then. You also have an interview and a case study with 2 partners. So you get 1 hour to prepare that case study, and then 1 hour to feedback and complete the competency-based interview questions. And then you get to meet the trainees. And then finally, you do a group exercise. So you'll be paired with a number of the other people at the assessment day, and you'll be assessed to see how you can work together. So I've gone through a real whistle-stop tour there because I've ran over and I've eaten into Sam's time a little bit, and he's going to tell you potentially the more interesting part about what it is like to be a trainee at CMS. So I'm going to hand over to Sam now.
Hi everyone, thanks Karen for that presentation. I'm just going to speak for about 10 minutes or so. I think we've got a bit of flex with timing, so about 10 minutes on what it's like being a trainee at CMS, and kind of my pathway to this traineeship, traineehood, whatever you want to call it, and kind of how I got here. So I studied at Cambridge. I did a degree called Land Economy, and I first heard of CMS at some events they were running at my university, and eventually I ended up applying for the vacation scheme during the Christmas holidays of my 3rd year at uni, as I wasn't a law student, so I did it in my 3rd year. I then joined the summer vacation scheme in 2017. That would have been, gosh, seems a long time ago now. And that was the summer I graduated. I think I was the first intake to do this CMS Academy. So we had the Business of Law Week, which took place in the London office, and then the vacation scheme, the practical element, which for me was actually in Bristol. So that's what I'd applied for. I then opted to take a trainee role in London instead. and I joined the firm as a trainee about a year ago, in August 2019. In that kind of intervening period, I went to law school for 2 years. I did a partial GDL because I'd studied some law modules at uni in that first year, and then in the time that created for me, I actually paralegaled at CMS. I've worked in the tech team, and then in the second year I did the LPC, and then joined the firm, like I said, in August 2019. So I suppose that's kind of a interesting pathway in terms of the vacation scheme, where I did it, and then my GDL, which was a bit different, being able to paralegal at the firm, which gave me a great insight into what the firm was like before I joined as well. So yeah, that was an interesting time, but it was great to start as a trainee this time last year. Something that might be useful is me discussing why I applied to CMS, and I think that really comes down to some of the things that Cara mentioned in her presentation. It's kind of the sector expertise. Cara mentioned the big merger, which we went through about 3 years ago, and that was big news when I was applying for my vacation scheme. So that was very important that I mentioned that and was aware of it in the interviews. So that's a top tip. That if your firm's going through something massive like that, you ought to know about it when you're applying. That was obviously was fine for my intake. People were aware of it. So the sector expertise is in real estate, which is something I'm interested in, planning and environmental law. All these things of which CMS has got a lot of expertise in. I think it's really one of the only top law firms where you can do a seat in environmental law as a trainee, and that was a big draw for me, and I'm hoping to do that in my next seat. They've also got offices around the country. Seen a few questions pop up about that. And like I said, I did my vacation scheme in Bristol. I'm good friends with the other trainees around the country, Sheffield, Manchester, and in Scotland offices, and we get to interact with them, particularly on our 3-week induction before we joined as trainees. So that was good fun. Also, a big plus for me was that, as Cara mentioned, they hire off the vacation scheme. So you kind of get a few horror stories of people who are taking part in the vacation schemes, which themselves take a lot of effort and stress to get onto, and then they get to the end and have a really stressful interview, and maybe it doesn't go well on the day, and then that's 2 weeks out of your summer that you're not getting back. I really like the way that CMS does it, where you kind of got you're being assessed throughout the 3 weeks on your vacation scheme, but it's not that kind of intrusive, huge, stressful climax at the end. And so I find that really useful. Also, as Cara mentioned, the vacation scheme is open for applications across the summer holiday, the Christmas holidays as well. So for me, I'm kind of a bit of a last-minute merchant, so I wouldn't recommend leaving it, but having the opportunity to look at stuff in the Christmas holidays was good. Maybe a little bit of the story of what my life's been like as a trainee. So I've just entered my 3rd seat out of 4. My first one was in real estate transactions, which is a massive part of CMS's business, although we're obviously a full service law firm that do everything. One of the firms that joined us in the merger in Navarro was a real estate specialist. So we've got heaps of expertise in that area, and it was brilliant to be able to kind of get really well supervised by partners and senior lawyers that have been working with our key clients, big blue chip companies, real estate firms, supermarkets, that kind of thing. They've been in the market for 30 years helping those clients. So it was great to learn off those in real estate transactions. And then my second seat, which was pretty much all during the lockdown, apart from a few weeks at the start, that was in planning law, which again is kind of a real estate focused department where we give advice, act in litigation, and also work on transactional matters involving planning law, planning permissions, that kind of thing. I really enjoyed that. It was a lot more techie, as we called it. So there's a lot of legal research. You're kind of working on almost like problem questions throughout your time there, and there are also opportunities to work in to write articles, do marketing, and to take part and deliver training. which I really enjoyed. And I've just started my third seat, which is in the firm's really well-regarded energy practice. So I'm in kind of the renewable power team at the moment. We kind of work in giving advice in the regulated electricity, gas and other utility sectors, and also working on massive deals involving emerging technologies, offshore wind, onshore wind, hydro, clean energy, basically. So that's, it's a pretty cool sector to be working in, and CMS is right at the top. It's right at the pinnacle. There aren't really any firms better than us in that. I've also had good opportunities to get involved in corporate responsibility as well. In particular, CMS is a partner of a group called Applicants for International Development, A4ID, and I've been able to take part in a training program over the course of this year where A4ID basically gives taster sessions into different areas of pro bono work. So, for example, law and the environment, law and health, law and kind of welfare, social issues, which have been run by the university, or hosted at the University of Law and run by A4ID in partnership with leading speakers from the field, such as professors, academics, researchers from Chatham House, from the UN. So that's been a great opportunity to get involved in that kind of element of CR. So yeah, CMS supports A4ID, and then the objective is that by getting these taster sessions and this kind of training, these insight days, I'll be able to help out in more targeted pro bono opportunities in the future. I think the highlights for me of my time at CMS would be the training opportunities, whether that's the pro bono stuff with A4ID, but probably more importantly, the training you get during your seats as a trainee. So generally, as you join a new team, a new department, the first few weeks you spend quite a lot of time just getting up to speed with how the law works in that area. I found that really great way of learning on the job, getting taught by your senior lawyers in the team about what's important, how they work with their clients, as well as the more technical legal aspects of the work. There's also been a lot of opportunities to publish articles, which for someone who's just entered this career, it's in a really important way to get your name out there, build kind of even like a LinkedIn presence. It's great to be able to take part in kind of thought leadership as it's known, and I've really enjoyed doing that, particularly in planning in the energy teams. I also mentioned the 3-week induction we get just before we join as a trainee, and that was a great time to get to know the other trainees, and to kind of we get to know each other in kind of an environment that isn't just just straight onto the office floor. In that period of time, we do a course called the PhD at law school, which for anyone who's still doing stuff at law school, the advantage of doing the PhD while we're trainees, we're getting paid to do it, so that was always quite fun. And also innovation. I've been able to engage in various aspects of legal technology. Helped build a machine learning platform for analysing planning agreements and planning permissions, which was cool. The CMS has also been really supportive as we made this rapid transition to working from home, which as trainees wasn't something we were able to do prior to the lockdown, but now they're very much supportive of it. They've even provided us flexibility to work in the office now as well, which I think, speaking to my friends, other law firms, isn't something they've offered. So that's good. And also just a variety of different seats at CMS. We're a huge law firm, and we're able to choose different seats to work in as a trainee, and then you get to know what areas of law you're interested in, which ones suit you better. You get to work out different working practice between different departments, and gain a range of skills that really help build your CV as a junior lawyer. I think we're getting peppered with lots of questions, so I think maybe I'll tail off my presentation there and just hand back to Karen for the final bit.
Perfect. So I think, we're going on to questions now. So I think we're going to be, thank you, Sam. I think we're going to be asked some questions. So yes, I'll let.
Yeah, hello. I'm Lizzie. Lovely to see you both. Thank you so much for all of those insights. Really, really interesting. And yeah, we have had lots of questions come in from the floor. So I'll just get cracking if that's okay. We've got about 10 minutes.
Perfect.
So Sam, we've got quite a few for you. So I thought I'd dive in there as you just talked about some of your experiences. So I really like this one. Someone's asked around, how does having a large global reach benefit your experience? Oh, where's he gone? I think he's just jumped off, has he?
Has it? Has he? I can't see because I've only got the slides up, so he wasn't. I'll message him. Ask him.
Well, while we're waiting, I've got Ellie in the room here. So while we're waiting to see if Sam can come back on, should I just ask you a few questions, Karen?
Yes. Yep. Sure. Sorry, I've clicked off it. Yes. Go. Can you see my screen still?
Oh, hello. Am I back? Sorry, this hop-in platform just there's an automatic update for me and dropped me out. Sorry, I just missed the end of that question.
Okay, I'm back now. It just asked me the same thing, Sam. How funny. It just popped.
Sorry for anyone who's getting dropped out. It looks like we've lost a lot of other people as well.
It wasn't just you. Well, if I ask you that question again, so it was, how does having a large global reach benefit your experience there?
Oh, good question. So having a large global reach benefits the experience because, well, you're able to take part in a lot of international secondments. At the firm, obviously, things are a little bit different now in the situation, but early on in my training contract, we got opportunities to physically go and work in like Rio de Janeiro, Mexico City, Singapore, a host of other jurisdictions to go and work in. So in a practical sense, that's an advantage of having a global reach. Also, in the department I work in now, which is renewable energy, we advise like governments around the world on how they build regulatory frameworks for their energy sectors. So you actually get to gain insights into how the legal systems in different countries work. So that's kind of the advantage of having a physical presence and an advisory presence in different countries, I think.
Yeah, really interesting. So much breadth of knowledge that you get access to. So interesting. So the classic question, I know it's quite a long time ago, but are there any tips that you could give people watching who are looking to apply? Anything that you've kind of learned through your journey so far from sort of the application process? Yeah, any tips to share?
Sure. Well, I think it's something I touched on in my presentation is it's like know your firm. It's really important that you're aware of, the headline issues affecting a firm that you apply to. So for me, that was being aware of this big merger that was going on when I applied to CMS. Also, just a couple like major deals or transactions that they're working on if they're that type of firm, or things that they've been, awards they've been awarded recently, such as CMS has got their kind of top employer for women recently. So just being aware of having that kind of awareness always goes down really well in application processes.
Really good. Hi, Karen. So I think we all had the same problem. Hop in, shut this out for a minute. So we've just had a
what happened. Sorry, I'm back.
So we've had a really good chat, Sam and I, just talking a lot about his experience. So I've got actually some for you now, Karen. So a few people talk about the CMS Academy. So I bunched up a few of the questions to try and answer them all. So can you apply to more than one office for the CMS Academy?
It's a good question, and no, you can't. It's all we're location specific. So even if you apply for first steps, you would then be looking to get a CMS Academy for the same office and equally a training contract. So yeah, very good question.
And then someone's very interested to go, if you could go into more detail of what happened in the business week of the CMS Academy.
I mean, it's such an all-encompassing week, to be honest. It's quite difficult, I think. And also there's some, Sam will know, there's some kind of secrets, I guess. There's a simulation exercise. It's very exciting. Oh, yeah, I mean, you can see it in his face. But it's, I guess, like, it's kind of the whole week, and it's in essence is actually, it's these skill sessions. It's actually seeing how all the trainees or potential trainees work together. So it's a whole range of exercises. I think, gosh, I don't know how many are done over the week, but it's actually to give you that sort of insight into working with clients. They do pitches. So it's really, I'd say it's a little bit of everything. You've got networking. So yeah, it's actually quite hard to summarize in probably quite a short amount of time, but I think actually what it is, it's a really varied week, and you'll get to meet lots sort of stakeholders and fee earners from all across the business. So it's a little bit of everything, to be honest. A really eventful week.
Yeah. If I can just add, probably the highlight of that week for me was we got taken on a client visit. So we had a partner took us to their which was a really great exposure. And I'm not sure that many other vacation scheme students get to do that. So that's great.
Yeah. Really good. Really good insight of what you can reveal and what you can't. I like that.
Don't give it all away, you know.
Keep it secret. So another one, this is, so a few people have asked this, it's what qualities and work experience does an applicant need to have in order to secure a place on the CMS Academy?
So I think in terms of work experience, I think a lot of people think you need to have legal work experience, and you really don't. Anything like that is going to be beneficial, but if we're looking for 50% non-law, then that's going to be quite unlikely that people are going to have legal experience. My general approach to this is actually anything is valid. So whatever, as long as you can explain that you've got transferable skills out of something from a customer service role, which I've done customer service, I don't think there's anything more challenging. So those sort of interpersonal skills that you get from that, that's all the stuff that we want to see. Of course, legal experience is valid. And you also take a common sense approach. You don't need to go back to like your paper round, but anything that where you might have had some level of responsibility, get it on there. Equally, voluntary work that all counts. In terms of what we're looking for, I kind of like to say that we're not looking for one type of person, because I do think that I think we're quite a personality-driven firm, and if we were all one type, it would be extremely boring. But I think that there are a lot of competencies that we're looking for. We're looking for people that are innovative. We are looking for people that have leadership qualities. We're looking for people that are team players. And a bit of an insight, our website actually tells you specifically, it actually says who we want. So we don't really hide it. So I think that actually it kind of tells you there what sort of, when you're shaping your competencies for, say, a video interview or an assessment day, try and build examples around those, because we're quite transparent about it, because we hope that people relate to the competencies that we've outlined.
Brilliant. Good top tips there. Love it. So this is a really interesting one. So what are the core values and what makes you stand out in comparison to competitors?
So I think everyone will have a different kind of, in terms of, everyone's got a different opinion to this. I think that actually, and maybe Sam will agree, I think our culture is everything here at CMS. And I think for me personally, when I was coming into the office and thinking, we have really lovely offices, which I greatly miss, and actually thinking this is going, that you naturally think it might be intimidating. And I've never worked somewhere where it is less hierarchical. You can speak to anyone. The managing partner just turned up in our office one day, sits at the desk next to you. For me, that's everything, because you're around these people all the time. It's really inclusive. And, I think, again, kind of what I mentioned in the presentation, that culture has really held us all together as a firm. And I do firmly believe that it's not, it kind of is what it says it is. It is a really forward-facing, really friendly place to work. And I think that's a distinguishing factor for sure. I don't know, Sam, do you have any?
I think that's a really fair point. Just a few of the keywords they use are like future-facing, which you'll see on like our social media, which we use, and that's really about us being a forward-looking firm. We've come from these disparate firms that have joined together, and now we're all looking forward and kind of using our presence in the market to create new ideas and get them out there. And also it's your world first. It's about putting our clients first and kind of having a sector expertise that we really build on.
I think it's so lovely to hear you both say that, because in terms of culture, it's so important. And I mentioned it earlier, but we did a poll earlier. So if anyone hasn't done the poll, shout out, go on the polls. We've got a few. And it was just working out or asking students who are watching, what's the most important thing? And culture was coming out as one of the top ones. So it's so lovely to hear you say that, and both of you. And then, so I mean, this question is kind of leading off that one, but it's just interesting to hear from both of you. What would you say are your favourite things about working at CMS?
Yeah, so again, it would probably be like you say, it leads on to the other question, because I personally, I think I really like the people that I work with, and I do. It's just you're well looked after as an employee. I think for me, well-being is really important, particularly at this time. So I think I do think that can be lost when you're working for a global or a large organization. So for me to feel like you matter is really important. But on a personal level, I actually just really enjoy, I also just really like my colleagues, and all those things are really, so I think I'm feeling I'm missing the office, I'm going to be honest. I'm probably all my questions answer that. But yeah, that is the nicest thing to me. It's the people, and the work is brilliant, but people are really, really important. So that's probably my answer.
For me, probably as well as that, the quality of learning and the quality of training I'm getting as a trainee. Like in the practice groups I've been working, which are the real estate group and energy group, we're like the leading firm. We're top ranked, and that as well as you getting the training, the stuff you're learning in the office or from your colleagues is top of the market, which is just great, and that's going straight on your CV, and it looks great.
Really good. I was just having a little look. We've probably got a couple more minutes, and we've had a few literally since we've been talking come through on the chat. And so let's just have a quick look at these. So there's one around how is the service provided at CMS different than other firms? Have you got anything to comment on that one?
I think I would say that kind of builds on the cultural aspect that we said. So our big things being future facing. So a couple of things I've been doing for clients recently is think of like horizon scanning, where we're not just advising on the law as it stands now, we're looking at what it's going to be like in a few months' time. We're able to help our clients navigate the future, and we're going to be standing by them as they do that, and they really appreciate that. So that's something that I think we do particularly well and sets us apart in terms of our service offering.
Nice, excellent. And then this is quite an interesting one. If there's any top tips or sources to stay up to date on the firm and what's happening with the firm, is there anything that you would both recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can I would always use the typical, as I say, BBC News and Times, and actually look at more broadly as well. But I think in terms of the firm, I think the advice I would give is just to go beyond the website. Obviously, there's a wealth of information out there and social media, so you can really do a deep dive into deals and things like that. So I think my main bit of advice is actually just go beyond the surface, because quite often, the website is really, really good, but you'll only find out so much there, whereas you find a lot more up-to-date and relevant information, and actually you can kind of track what's going on. I think it's really interesting to track, say, the last 6 months. You can kind of pick out trends, pick out really interesting things that have been happening. So I think a lot of that information is out there. It's just a case of actually social media, to me, is always it goes deeper. I think if you're looking at a specific firm, and actually from that you can then do your own investigation further. So I think that would be my bit of advice there. Yeah, excellent. Well, Sam, was there anything else from your side that you would recommend, or anything else you wanted to share with students who are probably looking at you and thinking, I want to be you in 10 years?
Yeah, well, I think what Karen said is exactly right. Like, I would go to social media and the website, but that's really the key that unlocks a door of a whole other realm of information. The firm will announce that they've taken part in this, like a transaction, and then you'll see, all the press will be reporting upon it, and maybe they'll have a slightly different view to what the firm says. So that's all useful information, and I'd say that's stuff of general importance to people applying to vacation schemes. Look at what they're saying in the press about the firm, rather than just what the firm says about itself as well. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, I think we are out of time. So I just want to say thank you so much. There's so many questions as well that are coming through. So if you do have any specific questions, please head over to the booths to have a chat. And are you guys going to be in the booths in a bit, hopefully? I'm not. My colleagues are, but I'm actually not there, because we've got loads of the early talent team there, so they'll be able to answer all the questions. I'm sure we've got trainees there as well, so they can. I'll be there. There you go, so you can pick up where you left off. Brilliant. Okay. Thanks, everyone. I love that. Head over. But thank you so much. That's been brilliant. And enjoy lunch, everyone. Speak to you soon. Thank you. Bye. Bye.